Hey, hi. In this video, we will be discussing about integrating F5 with Cisco ACI. One of the powerful features of ACI is managed services integration, which helps integrate third-party L4 to L7 devices to ACI Fabric. There are two ways to actually integrate L4 L7 devices to ACI Fabric. There is managed mode and an unmanaged mode. In this video, we'll be discussing about the managed mode. With managed mode, the device can be completely administered from within the ACI. This is done using device packages, which essentially are scripts that translate the configurations done in ACI to that of the device. So without further ado, let's jump into the demo. So attached is the topology we'll be using for this demo. As you can see, we have a tenant named Big IP, and within this tenant we have a Big IP Client EPG and a Big IP Server Web Server EPG, and we'll be inserting a uh, Big IP F5 load balancer between them. For this demo, we will be using the virtual edition of F5. Users will access the VIP address and will be load balanced on a round robin basis across the web servers. To save some time, I have completed some basic configurations. So let's quickly review the configurations of the tenant and the F5. So quickly, let's jump into the tenant. So attached is the Big IP tenant, and as you can see, we have an application profile named Big IP, under which there are two EPGs named client and servers. Um, and there are two BDs associated with those EPGs. So client bridge domain associates to client EPG, and server bridge domain associates to server EPG. Another thing I would like to show is there is no contract that is existing between the EPGs, so which means the devices or the endpoints connected cannot communicate within these EPGs, between the EPGs. Let's also quickly review the VMware configurations. So this is my vCenter, and I have the Big IP load balancer here, Big IP F5, and I have a couple of web servers and the client. So the client is basically, if you can just see the settings, the client is part of the Big IP client EPG, and similarly, if you look at the web servers, it should be part of the server EPG. Sorry, I'll just change this to server EPG. So let's look at the Big IP F5. So as you can see, the Big IP F5 has multiple interfaces. Only the first interface is configured on the VM network, which is basically used for management of the F5 itself. All other interfaces are in a default quarantine port groups within the vCenter. Let me just quickly show you the Big IP itself. So this is the F5, and as you can see, there's literally no configuration that is existing for the F5. So also look at the tenants. There are only a common tenant that's available. So there's no configurations apart from just the local IP address that's used for management of the F5. So with that, let's quickly begin. The first thing that we need to do is to basically go and import the device package into ACI. So for that, we go to the L4 L7 services. We go to the device packages and click on this, and we basically go and import the device package. Uh, I've already imported the F5 device package, and you can see this here. So once you're done that, you need to basically go to the tenant uh, in which you want to basically insert the load balancer. So we log into the Big IP tenant and we go to the L4 L7 services. The first thing is to add the L4 L7 device. So we'll create the L4 L7 device. We'll name it as Big IP F5. Service type is ADC, device type is virtual. VMM domain, it's connected to my ACI DVS VM domain. It's a single mode. If you have a cluster, you can use it as a cluster. And props out for the device packages that you've actually imported onto ACI. We'll use that. And the model, I'll just use this as Big IPv generic. This will be generally used for if you have a hardware load balancer and not the virtual one. So APIC to device, it's basically the communication of APIC to device, and the management of the F5 and the APIC management are on out of band. So we'll use the out of band connectivity, and I'll give the credentials for F5. The management IP address of F5 is 78, and it uses HTTPS. This is the VM. So this is the ACI DVS Big IP F5 VM that I showed you in the vCenter. And we'll go and add the device interfaces. So the first interface is basically allocated the network adapter 2. Remember, network adapter 1 was used for the management of the FI itself. So we'll use the network adapter 2 and I'll just update. Similarly, I'll add another for as a network adapter 3 and update. And then we'll create the cluster interfaces. And here I will use it as consumer. Consumer is basically the external interface. And I will use 1/1 as the external interface. Similarly, I'll add a provider interface, which will be the internal interfaces which leads to the web service. And I'll map it to 1/1_2, which is basically the network adapter 3. So once you've done this, you just hit next and then say finish. Then if you just click here, you should find that the status of peak IP connection configuration state should become stable. So it's actually undergoing a state changes. Right now it's showing as initial, and then it goes to audit pending, and finally it becomes stable. Once it's become stable, we can proceed with our further configurations. And that's become stable. So let's go and continue configurations. The next thing that you need to do is to basically create a L4 L7 service class template. So I'm going to create that. We'll call it Big IP F5 LB. I'll create a new one, and this was the L4 L7 device that we added. We'll connect it between the consumer and the provider EPG. It's a 2-arm mode, and the profile I'm going to use is the basic virtual service bus profile. The package actually gives you 3 different profiles. So if it's already a virtual server profile or a HTTP server profile, it just creates the port configurations are already created within the package itself. So we'll use a basic server profile, and I'll hit submit. So once you do that, you find that the Big IP F5LB is available. And now you need to click that and do a right click on that and do an apply L4 L7 service class template. Choose the consumer EPG, which is our EPG Big IP EPG client. The client will basically access the EPG server. And I'm going to create a new contract which will say all traffic. No filter for now, and I'll do a next. Sorry. Once you see that this gets auto-populated, the BD is client for the client, and it's part of the external interface. Server is part of the internal interface. I just need to check this and then click next. Once you do that, now this is the configuration window for the FI itself. So we go to the all parameters, and there are certain things that are in red that needs to be configured within the FI itself. So we'll configure the parameters through Epic, and this configuration gets pushed to the FI itself. So I'll just quickly configure these things. There are some basic stuff that we need to configure. Those are available here. So I'll quickly do this. We'll just say update. Once you click an update and becomes green, means it's already been configured. The thing that we need to configure here is monitor, and then we'll do an update. We can do a monitor frequency of 5 seconds. We'll do a monitoring protocol. We'll use ICMP for now, and we'll say trigger of 3, which it's a failure. You also need to do pool configuration, so you can rename it or you can just use the default one. So we'll use the default one. Member, I'm going to add 2 members for now, so I'm going to create this as member 1 and update. And the only thing that I'm going to assign here is the member IP port, which is the listening port on the web server, which is 80, and the IP address of the web servers, which is 6.6.11. I'm going to add another member. If you've seen that I had 3 members, so I'll add 2 here and then later on tell you how to add the third one. So I'll create another one here. It comes as member 1, 2. We'll call it as member 2. And then again, we'll configure the basic parameters here, which is port 80 and the member IP address of 6.6.12. Pool monitor, we'll just say update and just open. I'll just select pool monitor. It comes as local traffic. Just don't update. Load balancing method, I'll just use a round robin. We can use anything. Just for this demo, we'll use a round robin. And and then pool type, we just say static. I'm not going to do any I rule configurations, but yeah, network configurations has to be done. So I'll just configure the networks. So external self IP is basically the external interface. So it's not a floating IP. So I'm going to say it as no. The external self IP is the interface that is towards the client. So it's 5.5.25. I'm not going to do a port lockdown. I'm just leaving it none for now. And the subnet mask is 255.0. The internal IP is basically the IP, the F5 IP, interface IP that will be towards the web service. So let's quickly configure that as well. I'll configure this as 6.6.25. Configure this. No port down. We don't need to do any route. Another thing we need to configure is the listener. So we'll click here and we'll just rename this to listener. Remove the default. Expand this. Here we need to ensure what protocol we're going to use. Since we're going to load balance on port 80, we'll use TCP. And we can actually even mention the source ports. I'm just going to leave it blank. The thing that we need to update are the virtual service IP addresses, which should be 5.5.100. And the net mask will be a /32 net mask. And the virtual server port is listing on 80 as well. So once that is done, network relationship, just update and select network, drop down, you just choose network. On the pool, just do an update, and you can specify some connection limits. I'm not going to choose anything. I'm just going to update this with the local traffic pool. And that's it. So none of the parameters are showing as red, so most of the configurations are done that is required for this integration. So I'm going to hit finish, and then I'm going to just submit this. So once you do that, there are a couple of configurations that happens in the background. So let's quickly review those things. Let's quickly go to the vCenter, and you can see that there are a couple of port groups, distributed port groups that got added, and there is a reconfiguration of the virtual machine big IP F5, which is happening. So let's give it a minute to complete and then review what exact changes were made. So let's quickly review the big IP. Just click this. If you can see this, where these two network adapters were part of the quarantine port groups, now it has been assigned to a big IP sort of a port groups which will be used to bridge the traffic between the EPG client and EPG servers. This is done automatically. Let's also go and quickly review our big IP itself. So what EPIC does is basically creates a new partition. It shows as EPIC 5794. Let's quickly check this, and you will find that you can now see a virtual server list. It shows as EPIC 5794, and then if you actually go and look at the pools, you'll find that is an EPIC pool is also there, and within the pools we can look at nodes. These are the two nodes that we added, 11 and 12. And if you look at our sorry, I will go to the pools. I will look at the pool, I will look at the members, and both of them are listed under the pool members, and they are showing a status of green, which means they are sort of reachable. So all these configurations have been done automatically from EPIC. The ID 5794 corresponds to if you go to the deployed graph template, I think I'll just quickly check. I think not here. Deployed devices, and if you look at big IP, This is the virtual services ID that AP created, and the same ID is actually used uh, in as a partition name within the big IP. You can also find the VLAN endcaps that's been used. These VLAN endcaps were from the VMM pool defined in the EPIC. So all the configurations have been done, and we didn't actually touch the big IPFI itself. So everything has been done from EPIC. Let's quickly go and do a check now. So I have a client and web servers. So let me quickly log into the client. And I have a web server running already. So let's just quickly type this. This is the web server address. And let me see if I can refresh. And as you can see, this starts load balancing between web server 1 and web server 2. Um, and let's quickly check on the F5 itself if you see some traffic. Statistics, and you can see that the packets were coming in and going out of the F5. All those things was completely configured from the EPIC itself. Oh. So let me also tell you how to add or edit the device template that we actually created. So if you want to add another member to the group, so let's go ahead and add and do that. So before that, let me just check if the member is already configured. This is the third member, and we'll see how we can add it through the EPIC. So this is the thing. I've already saved it. I think this is the web server. I just create a simple web page, and hopefully it should work. So we go to the EPIC, and we go to our big IP application profile, and we go to our EPG, which is the server EPG, and we click the L4 L7 parameters. And you can see this is what we had defined, and there is an edit icon here. So let's go ahead and click the edit icon. Just choose the contract, choose the graph, and choose the node name, and go to all and all parameters. You can actually see what you had configured. Uh, so we'll just expand this and local traffic, and we'll expand the pool. And there were two members, so I'll go and add another member here. So add a member called member 3, and I'll say member is 80 6.6.13. I think it's very similar to what we had configured on the member 2 and member 1, and we say submit. So let's quickly check on our big IP F5 and do a refresh, and you can see that the third member got automatically added. And all configurations was done through EPIC. And now let's see our client machine and maybe try to do some refresh, and you can see that it is now even going to the 3 and 2, so it's getting load balanced across all the 3 servers. A quick check on the statistics, and let me just quickly refresh this again, and you can see that the load balancing statistics are available for all the 3 servers now. Thus we can actually integrate F5 or maybe any other L4 L7 device uh, with EPIC with the manage mode, and we can completely administer that L4 L7 device through EPIC. Thanks for watching.